Hello, how you doing, Roxanne? We're actually perfectly ready for you if you're ready, or are you going to kind of just land for a second? Roxanne, can you actually introduce yourself for just a second, just so everybody can kind of...
Hello, I'm Roxanne Romero, and I do consulting for Adilas. I actually do bookkeeping and cleanups and consulting and training and whatever is needed, whether it's with or without Adilas, but I've been consulting for Adilas for probably almost 6 years, and I was actually trained by Steve, who works at Brandon here.
And I was trained by Steve.
And so I just started kind of coming to these trainings. This is on my second one, just to kind of, see what I could pick up, because there's always changes and add-ons and things that happen within Adilas. So, I always learn like something. So that's about it.
Perfect. Roxanne said that she would come in and help us with deposits and expenses. So basically what we've done this morning, and I'll kind of give you just a second to kind of relax, but we're going to kind of go into banks, deposits, and expenses. We have some random little pieces of the puzzle in here, and if we needed to, we can bounce into a different corporation if you needed to show some more meat or something. But what's going on just basically is we've kind of done a light introduction to some basic accounting principles, okay? And then also how Adilas kind of plays this particular game, how we do it. What I'd like to do really quick, just to kind of get Roxanne just a second to take a breather, if you will, let's just kind of pop around the room and just kind of say some sort of comment or something about what we've either learned this morning, or say, what about this, or whatever. Okay, it could be either way. I'm not worried about it at all, okay? And instead of actually going around the room, let's actually have it by raise of hand. Anybody want to start? Either a comment, yay or nay? Just so you know, I enjoy the feedback, okay? And what happens is if somebody else says it, it might actually trigger somebody else, because sometimes I kind of just get into the mode a little bit. Alrighty, awesome. So if you don't call on me, I'm gonna call on you. All right, Joe.
Brandon, I appreciate your philosophy as well as the nuts and bolts, because I think sometimes we can get so focused on our numbers and our inputs and everything else, but like you show in that video, and I've seen that a few times now, or let's just say your tangents are always valuable because they give us an insight on where you're coming from, and you're the programmer. You made this, or you.
So I am the programmer. The literal brainchild of this person is Steve. Okay, and this may, like, I know that it would be a slight tangent, but I want to show you a couple teeny graphics that Steve. Basically, what happened is we eventually created this system for a car and auto dealership that sold trailers and toppers and stuff. Okay. As we developed, eventually it was like, what if we could do this? What if we could do this? It's the exact same thing Adilas is doing right now. People keep saying, oh. And so we keep saying, I'll write that down, I'll write that down. And so, like, it's just a progression, if you will, okay? But Steve had this vision of like, oh my goodness, I've got X number of businesses, and I have major pain because it's a pain in the rear, because I have this here, this is not here, this is way over here. And so as we slowly did it, he's like, I would love to kind of take our operations and zipper it together. And the reason I was going to actually just go to a new little homepage is my daughter actually drew me a couple small little teeny pieces of the puzzle, okay? And at the time, she was only like 11 and 12. She's now 13, so. But I'm just going to quickly go to the Adilas.biz homepage and kind of just show you a couple quick little graphics. But these are some concepts that Steve kind of introduced, and he was actually training me as far as like, me as the programmer. Remember how I was like, Steve, I can't make this thing balance. He's like, whoa. What you need to do is you need to catch, and then as it's ready, we bring it back. Oh, phew, you mean I don't have to balance this thing? Nice. Like, that was a huge relief for me. It was huge, okay? I'm going to scroll all the way down towards the bottom and just show you some fun little graphics, okay? I'm going to skip past some of them right here. There's this thing that we're going to eventually do this called roll call accounting, okay? So guess what this does? As things happen over time, we basically use the computer and we go like this. Hey, which invoices were created on the 22nd? Hey, we only had 3 of them, okay? The same computer, this is kind of your computer right here, okay? And I realize this, there's some alternate text behind this, so that's what keeps flashing up when I mouse over it, okay? But pretend that this guy says, hey, what happened on the 23rd? hey, we had this many POs, this many new payments, this many this. Okay, basically he's constantly asking the data, if you will, what happened. Okay, we call that roll call. Hey, where were you? Hey, where are you going? You know, who's your buddy? Like, in a way, it's basically the computer asking what's going on. Okay, we have permissions and settings as kind of the whole foundation of Atlas. It's what allows it to flex and be all the different little pieces. This is a little drawing that was done by my daughter. Okay, this was Steve's idea. He's like, oh my goodness, there's this huge gap between operations and accounting, and I would love it if we could kind of zipper this thing together. Okay, these were some of Steve's ideas that he was like, so what we're going to do is we're going to track every penny. Where did it start? Okay, what happened over its life cycle? Oh, this penny eventually went here, and then I used it over here, and then I used it over here. So we started kind of slowly tracking these pennies, virtual GPS on money. Okay, how many of you guys have used shipping industries and used FedEx tracking and UPS tracking and stuff? What do? They virtually GPS tracking. Each thing, a package starts at a spot, okay? It gets date stamped, okay? It goes to the next level. It gets date stamped when it gets added to that truck. It all of a sudden is in transit for a little bit and you have no clue where it's at, but you know that it got on the truck. It lands at the next place and it gets date stamped and says, hey, I landed in this place. It gets put on a new truck, date stamped. Remember how I was drawing that little kind of flexible thing like that where the little different compartments? Guess what we do inside of Atlas? This is virtually a linear, almost a, Henry Ford created the, whatever it's called, assembly line, okay? This is almost a virtual GPS tracking unit for data and or an assembly line for data. Who's adding on to this different thing? What's happening? So those are kind of some of the different pieces. This is a simple little drawing my daughter did. This is dealing with cart before the horse or after the horse. We highly recommend the top level, okay? It's just better. It's a little harder to go that way. Okay,
Fortunately, you have
yes.
cleanup situations in accounting where it is always from the back forward.
You do have some stuff that you can do there, okay?
And it's possible with this system.
Correct. Now, in an ideal solution, watch this, okay? If you have a rider and he's sitting on your wagon, guess what you can do? Whoa, 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 operation, slow down, or I want you to turn this way, okay? You can still control a lot of things. This is a funny analogy. You probably heard this before. The man is the head of the household, right? Here's what my wife says. The man might be the head of the household, but the wife is the neck, and she can turn that head. Okay? So anyway, just kind of fun, but like, just so you know, accounting can totally, we don't want it to be operations just running wild, okay? That's very hard to control. Accounting still needs to help and keep things in control and do some different things, but what we don't want to do is we don't want to say, whoa, 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 this is all you can do, force your operations into this. We want to say, cool, that's a great idea, let's try that. And all of a sudden we're going to have to account for that. That's cause and effect versus forcing round into square. Okay, that's kind of a little different. And Roxanne, you're going to even show us probably, even as we get into like creating expenses or doing some of these things, how you can go back in and modify it, which is basically saying, whoa, I need to kind of like rein this in or pull this back. That is from the back forward, but it still has the horse in front of the cart. Okay, but it just kind of depends on what's going on. So this was Steve's analogy right here. This was also drawn by my daughter, but he literally drew this on paper. He's like, okay, so when your sales happens, it's kind of loosey-goosey, and you're still trying to work out the deals, and maybe you don't have all your money yet, and you don't have all the paperwork. We were dealing in the car industry, and so things potentially take days just to kind of be flexible and stuff. And slowly, he wanted it to slow and snush, and then eventually the ice, he's like, once we get it to ice, we're really going to be able to have firm, solid data. And once again, it's still the zippering type effect of bringing pieces together. So. And then this one just kind of talks about one-to-many relationships and such. One more little graphic right here is, this one right here was also done by my daughter, but it shows a busy street, okay? So remember how we talked about the roll call as far as like, what happened today, what happened with this? Well, things run over time. Imagine looking down on a busy street, and I realize this may not look like a busy street, but we're in Denver. There's lots of busy streets, okay? You can turn into the parking lot, you can get into the passing lane, you can go to the turn lane, you can do a U-turn, you can do whatever you're doing, okay? Imagine if you were videotaping that whole thing that was happening on a road. And And say you wanted to see that green Ford F-150 pickup truck, okay? You're like, where were you at such and such a time? Okay, according to the video, you weren't even in the picture. So in Adilas, what we do is, like, guess what? You didn't even count, okay? Oh, the green Ford pickup came into the thing, and he came right here. He's turning into one of these little parking lots, okay? Ah, you were becoming something, okay? And then you sat in the parking lot for 2 hours, and then you pulled out. Basically what it is it's those same little time capsules that you're kind of starting to say, what happened over time? And each action, if you will, you go, and you record that and you date stamp it. It's just like taking a package through FedEx and how that works, okay? If you can think of that, that'll kind of help you think of what's happening with the accounting process, okay? So that was a huge tangent, but hopefully that was okay. Let's just go a couple more comments. We don't have to do the whole room, but let's do a couple other comments as far as what we were talking about, and we will go from there. Awesome. Any other comments about this morning? What we're trying to do is we're trying to lead it in so that Roxanne can take over and say, banks, deposits, and expenses. Here we go. Let's play a little bit. It's a piece of the puzzle we haven't played with. We're going to introduce some more players virtually, okay? Sherry O, can I call on you?
Sure.
Yes. Just as far as a comment, pro, con, yay or nay, on what we were talking about this morning, as far as like just general flow and general. So what's going on right here is literally a traditional model has existed for close to 500 years, okay? There was a guy by the name of Lucas Pacioli, and he created one of the first math textbooks, okay? And at that point, when the printing press came out, they're like, wow, we can start sharing how to do some of these different pieces of the puzzle. Well, if you go back in time, you didn't have electricity. You barely had a printing press, which was still a manual device. So you didn't have copy machines, faxes, emails, like how many of you guys have cell phones that can have internet access on your persons at any point in time, okay? Oh my goodness, like this whole original model, and I'm not trying to say that it's bad, we actually simulate it. We simulate tons of it, okay? Balance sheet, income statement, we have to still simulate that whole thing. But I will use that word, we simulate it. We virtually map, we virtually run things over time, and that's how we get the accounting versus the traditional paper model that was done originally. Multi-column ledgers. They had problems. They're like, oh my goodness, I have multiple locations, and like what happened is models break. Okay, we broke tons of models. It's kind of part of what happens. But the traditional model that happened 500 years ago in today's society, like. We are going so fast. All of a sudden, could you imagine somebody back in those days saying, yeah, log on to your laptop and why don't you buy that through e-commerce? And by the way, pull out this little piece of plastic and slide it, and I'll automatically take it out of your bank. That just doesn't happen, okay? So basically, things are rolling faster and faster and faster. So what we're trying to do is trying to keep up. And we're like, okay, where are we headed with this thing? So that's what we're kind of doing. We literally are kind of taking a light stab at tradition, trying to say, I think that there's a better way that we can do this. We're still learning. We're still trying to figure out pieces. And as we get in there, like, okay, ooh, that's a little rough. That's okay. It creates progress. Yes?
So speaking of tradition,
yes,
we can say that today's tradition is QuickBooks or the Peachtree. So I guess as we go along today, I'd like to hear from Roxanne and Mick and Sherry, David, who are the bean counter number crunchers. What truly are the advantages and benefits of Adilas over those traditional systems that we're trying to get out the door because we have a superior system here? So it's probably a very long answer. You could go on and on, but I think as we go along today, I think maybe some comparisons could be brought up as to the weaknesses of the QuickBooks versus the strengths of this accounting system.
I think that would be fun, but that sounds very one-sided. I'll speak up on behalf of the other ones just for a second, okay? They are very established. They are very well used. These people have been taught years and years and years completely through school. So you can take somebody out of college who's had accounting, put them into that environment, and go, oh, okay, this is how you kind of do it. You take somebody out of college who's done accounting in a traditional way, and you say, come to Adilas. There's a learning curve. But as soon as they get it, guess what? They're like, oh my goodness. One of the costs to go to a new model is we have to kind of fight against tradition to kind of educate people, okay? So in their benefit, they are huge companies. They have lots of things that are fully done. They have huge teams of development. We are a small company and running as fast as we possibly can, trying to push the ball forward. But what I see is even the peach trees and the QuickBooks, I would hope that eventually they look at Adilas and be like, that's a great idea. I'm going to still keep my name because that's a great market share, and I'm going to possibly create either a side product and or whatever. Like some of the stuff that we are doing, I literally think of it at the level of Henry Ford and the assembly line, okay? We hope and we are trying as hard as we can. We're going to publish our information, our entire way that we're going to protect ourselves. Instead of saying, oh, this is proprietary and you can't have this, is to share. This is literally saying, I want to help with this battle against tradition and or showing, check this out, you can use technology in these new ways. And so I'm hoping to actually help train our competition. Okay?
It's open source in a way.
In a way, okay? But what it does is it empowers the people. And so like a lot of these people right here, the Liz's and the Amandas and the Roxannes and even the Sherryos and the Davids and stuff like this, they were original users inside of Atlas for a reason. And all of a sudden, they've now got to the level where they're like, oh my goodness, like I could totally go help this person and this person. Like, they've been empowered to kind of start using some of these pieces of the puzzle. So we will kind of talk back and forth. And it's just my personality. I don't want to be like, hey, we're better than so-and-so because of this. Like, I'll let you decide that, okay? But I'm going to kind of say, I will put a plug in for both QuickBooks and Peachtree saying they are very well established, they are very well marketed, they are very well accepted, and they have tons of things that potentially Atlas may not have yet just because we haven't got to that level yet. But we're excited to see where it's going to go, okay?
Well, and
if that's
obviously the first benefit is that for the last 2 days we did operations.
Correct.
And now all the operations that we did the last 2 days, Roxanne is going to show us how expenses and deposits and things. So that I know is the first and best advantage.
Awesome.
So,
Totally.
but for me as someone who's selling it, I'm always looking to,
the features, advantages,
Yeah,
benefits, that's what a salesperson does, okay? And that is awesome. And so what I'm going to have you do is we will say some stuff, and you may not exactly hear it from my mouth, and that's just personality, okay? But like if somebody else says it, I have no problem. But for me, you may not hear me directly say, here's your advantage, okay? I will try to show you, and I will try to let you learn it and see it.
Well, I guess where I'm coming from is that I don't particularly know accounting either on the QuickBooks end or the Sage or whatever. So I don't know how they operate particularly. I mean, I know about them. And
well, one of the things that I will say right now is that most traditional models actually use a thing called a chart of accounts, and eventually it kind of comes down to an old school model called a T account. Okay.
So it's Pablo. I mean, they're still using Pablo's deal.
Correct. So, and this is 1494 is when that first textbook came out. Columbus in 1492, like 2 years different, like literally that's the time frame it's happening, okay? If you want some information about this, we do have some on our main website, right there out in plain view. Scroll down towards the bottom and it kind of says, hey, here's where we're trying to go, and here's some history on what's going on. We had these things called credits and debits, okay, in a T account, and you would name it. And what happened was they were trying to keep ledgers and different pieces of the puzzle. Well, what happens as things got more complicated, you had to add more T accounts, and then you have to balance from here and balance from here. This is what the double entry was, okay? If I put $500 here, pretend that that's 500, I have to account for that somewhere else, okay? Either on the opposite side or on a completely other account on the positive or negative side, okay? It was literally a paper model, and what's happened in some of the traditional accounting systems right now, they've computerized that model and they've helped speed it up. They really have. They really have helped speed it up a ton. But it still does the exact same terminology, a debit and a credit. You haven't heard me use those words at all this entire thing unless we're talking about a traditional system. What we do is we simulate some of those same pieces through technology, okay? Awesome.
So did anybody have anything to say that I missed about the advantages?
the advantages
But the difference between Adilas and like QuickBooks or Peachtree or other systems?
And once again, I don't want to turn this into a bash session, okay? And I'm just kind of, and I pros and cons, okay?
I see because I've worked in QuickBooks and I've also worked in industry, and I'd like to see. I'm really interested because I know a little bit about both the systems, and you see this, and then I can determine whether.
I can give my own personal opinion.
Okay, great.
Because I think it's important.
Sure.
You know, sometimes you go into a bookkeeping accounting situation where people are with what they're with and they're familiar with it. Some people go, even in this day, are still using just receipt books and whatever, just a book of a general ledger, not even a system. Like, you know, and for you to not necessarily try to convince somebody to change over to Adilas or anybody for that matter, but just to work smarter, you know, not harder, is kind of hard because people are used to what they're used to. So, you know, I think one of the biggest advantages is just the simple fact that it's not a software, because you are working with it, they're constantly updating it, they're willing to take your suggestions and opinions and ideas and incorporate it into the system if they feel like it's going to help everybody as a whole. You don't run across that. You know, you have to buy whatever package of software you buy, and you have to every year or 2 or 3 update. So, you know, and you really, your input doesn't mean as much, I should say. I don't want to say I don't take anybody's input, I don't know. But, you know, that alone is tremendous in my opinion. So, you know, the other thing that I really, truly like about it is that it is keeping up with the times. It's just that, you know, there's constant changes. I mean, I've been doing it for like 6 years. There is stuff in there that I don't even use, you know, because I don't have to right now. But if I want to, or if I want to start messing around and looking in there, you know, I can learn it. It's very user-friendly. It's very, you're able to do anything in the system and then fix it or change it or, you know, worst case scenario, avoid it. But, you know, it's very user-friendly.
Well, along the same lines, you appreciate the mobility of it because you can do some work from here if you have to.
Exactly.
You can do some work from your living room or in front of the TV or
right, you
at
can
the office.
remember something in your car and you know, you have no way of getting to a computer or doing anything, but you don't want to wait because you remember, or you got a phone call from a client and you don't want to make them wait, or, you know, you could literally pull over, do it on your phone and just, it's done, you know. I mean, it's just so user-friendly and so accessible. And along the same lines, I just love the simple fact that you can upload any document. I mean, you know, we all know all the other systems are not like that. You don't upload anything. You keep all your paper files, which, you know, with Adilas, you end up keeping your paper files anyways. Most people aren't going to get rid of their paper, even if they are paperless, which is fine. It's just the whole fact of accessibility and not having to search through drawers and files and envelopes and boxes and whatever. So, you know, just being able to upload and things like that, all the fancy, you know, up-to-date things that we need to do with technology. And even, you know, owners and managers and stuff, maybe they're not there, but they just want to check on their people, check on their stuff. You know, I mean, you can't do that, you know, with QuickBooks. I mean, first of all, you have to go back and forth sending, and I'm not just saying QuickBooks, I'm saying other programs, because I work with whatever everybody has. So I'm not like, nope, Adilas, you know. But, you know, if you ask me my opinion, then I'm going to tell you how you can make it easier, right? But in a lot of ways, but I'll work with what you got. But it's like, you know, you have to send an accountant copy to the accountant, and then you have to wait for them to do what they do, and then they send it back. Or what, you know, all these different things. You can't constantly go look at what's happening right now because you have to wait for the communication. Whereas it's just there. You look at it whenever you want. You know?
I actually like that feature as well as what you were saying
Oh,
about
yeah.
quotes and invoices. I've been in many businesses where I'm trying to find a quote where I quoted a general contractor, I quoted a customer, and I'm like, okay, your name, you tell me the name, you know, it's Steve Construction. Okay, well, now I have to go back, and I always have a file drawer, and I have to go through and I find Steve Construction, and I pull it out, I open it up, and I'm like, okay, this is what I quoted you. And what we went over yesterday with the quotes in this system, all you have to do, quote number 3. Oh, go to your oh, Steve, just type it in, S-T-E, click on it, and boom, and then we did with the Flex Grid.
Mm-hmm.
The Flex Grid, automatically when you pull it up, it says Flex Grid, quote number 3, click on it, boom, there's your quote. You can print it. I can email it to you, and it's just, I don't have to constantly look inside the drawer anymore.
hard.
It's
By the way, you being on the road. Or
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
and just right there on the phone and say, okay, well, hold on, okay, boom, 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 there you go, it's emailed to you right now. Oh, well, thank you, okay, there you go. Not, hold on, I need to get to the office, I need to look in my drawer, I need to, or I have to scan it, put it on my computer, and then email it to myself, and so I have it on my email, so if anyone ever calls, I can, that's what I liked about yesterday.
Awesome.
Is that you can just continually, and that's what I was going over last night, is that you can hold everything within inside the system.
All
Your quotes,
data
your invoices,
is live
your-
and searchable.
Right.
Yes.
That's probably the last thing, is just the simple fact that as you're using it, you're constantly putting stuff in, that's constantly creating your reports and your P&L and whatever you need. It's not like you have to go back later and, do data entry or certain things. It's like everybody that's playing a part in the business is building your business's accounting. I mean,
Think
it's
of an
real
assembly line,
fast.
okay? It no longer has to be one person building the entire car. You say, Jimmy, I'm going to let you guys start it. You guys play with the tires because I don't think you can hurt that, okay? And then all of a sudden you put the next person on who's like putting on the doors, and then you have the detail person at the very end who's doing the trim work, okay? You do the same thing with your accounting, okay? You say, your personality, you're going to stay over here. I'm going to kind of create permissions, a wall of permissions around you. You're just going to play here, and it's going to just be liquidy, okay? And maybe I might let you lightly play with some slush. But I will advance the ball and just pull it forward virtually to kind of make it into that ice, okay? So perfect.
So probably the last thing that I would like to say about, why I like the system is just that I just lost it. What were you just saying? It was right before you started saying about how you're building everything.
You were working
Assembly
together.
line.
You were talking about how all the teams were putting data in together, and it kind of creates the whole. It creates the story is actually what it does. Okay. It went. No problem. It'll come back.
I love everything about it, but I'm trying to stay very surface and just, that's it. I'm not trying to get down to details of deposits and that and this, but I'll get it.
Okay.
When I do, I'll get it.
Awesome. Mick, yes.
I think that probably the biggest thing between what I've seen with the two is whether it's QuickBooks or Peachtree or those, they're a numeric system. I mean, there's an alpha add-on,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to understand the numerics. And so you create a new customer, there's a name there, but it's the alphanumeric that drives it. Here, the customer is random more.
Mm-hmm.
The account number is inventory of bulbs. So it's an alpha system, and so the alpha system for the non-accountants is easier to look at and say, I know my customer is Will Smith. It's not WI 3000.
Sure.
And so, those of us that have been in the accounting mode for a long time, we understand it's an alphanumeric, and you can actually, now with some of them, you can search for Will, but you still need to know that it's WL 3000 or whatever that number is. And the same thing when you're trying to post something to an account. You know it's going to go to bank charges, but bank charges is a number
It's a number.
in the system, and so it's that numeric system that, it's hard to know that the 1000 series are assets, the 2000 series are liabilities, the 3000 are equity. And so all of the Peachtrees, they're all based on that numeric because numbers sort better than alpha.
Okay, correct. So here's what Adilas is. You said it's kind of the opposite. It's kind of like I would dare propose.
Layman's accounting.
What's that?
It's the businessman's accounting.
This is layman's accounting, and it's an object model, okay? Yesterday, we were building constantly with all these different little pieces of the puzzle, okay? One invoice has how many line items? Has how many payments? Has how many photos? We're sticking stuff into buckets, okay? So the whole thing is object-oriented, and then we kind of tie it together. And then we take these objects, once they're built, whatever they end up looking like, it doesn't even matter, okay? And then we just go like this. All right, guess what? Start your journey. Oh, my goodness, somebody else added another payment or something. No problem, I got the date stamp on it. Oh, somebody else, wait. It's literally an assembly line, but it's an object. You're literally building an object. So all of our models yesterday, even when we were putting objects on top of objects, like doing paying back reimbursements or creating statements and stuff like that, you cannot do that in a T account, okay? Like, it just doesn't work at all. So basically the difference is, I would dare say like this, T account and flat, okay? Let's go like this. And say you even have rows and columns, okay? Which is how everything is organized. Or you have this, and you end up getting this type of an analogy, okay? You get a three-dimensional object that has sides and space and lengths and distance, and possibly we can even add some wheels on it so it can roll. I'm just teasing, but like, basically, you get we're going to send an object over time versus just rows and columns that is totally a numeric system trying to do it. We're going to say, create an object, run it over time, I'll track that. It's no problem. Like, it's literally that different of a model, okay? But we try as hard as we can to play with all of the requirements that a bank has and all of these different things that auditors have and payroll people who come in and be like, I want to see what you're paying. And like, we have to play those games. And so we try to play all of those games. It's an object model. It really is. It really is. So
you're never going to publish an Adilas for
there might be, you know what?
I'm writing it.
Yeah. Perfect. Joe, you're on it. You can make a bunch there. Okay, great. Yes, Shannon.
Yeah, Tanya had a comment before
Yes.
you move on when you were asking for comments. She said, also, if you were a small business, you could wear many hats in your business, but it's all integrated into one system. And then as you wanted to expand, you could parse out your tasks. So that was a comment that she wanted to make.
Okay, awesome. And once again, you're kind of trying to advance that ball. How are we advancing the ball? Okay, that's perfect. That's perfect. Any other questions or comments or anything? I need to take a restroom break and just like a general break. How about we do a little break? Did you have a comment, Liz, or anything?
No, I mean, it's been pretty well covered with everything, but just as far as everything being connected to everything, that's what I like as far as, there's actually a conversation I was having with Steve the other day about an idea I had for Asheville, North Carolina, where I live, is sometimes dubbed Beer City, USA. And so there's a lot of information about beer drinkers. And, you know, it's preferences of customers in a market that's geared towards those customers, because it's a lot of craft beer people, whatever. And there's so much information, like intrinsic information in bartenders' heads about different, you know, patrons of the bar, whatever. And we're talking about something like, if you've been frequenting a bar for a year and a half, they have a staff change. Why should that affect your customer experience if the business itself has all that information on you? And we were talking about how an Adilas, it's the entire trackable history of everything. No matter what, everything tied to everything. So you could be a new salesperson coming in and using Adilas in your system and go, oh, hey Roxanne, I know you've been a customer for 10 years, and they're like, who are you? You're the new person, well, you know everything about it. It's just so awesome how immersed you can get into, and personally, I collect data and I, put it together in different ways myself, but to have all of your data not only connected in relationships that make sense, and just to use, from Adilas' own verbiage, just to fill in those parts of the story and the history, there really is nothing else like that on one system that you don't have any other add-ins on. So it's really amazing. And the more detailed you are about your documentation, about your customer log, about everything, your payments, and, like Roxanne was saying, in the expense receipts, you can voice stuff out. It's the story of, like, how you learn how to do it. It's just, it's amazing.
It is, okay? It is, put the horse in front, do an action, okay? When we talk characters and trouble and relationships, guess what we can say? Adilas has characters, Adilas has groups, Adilas has all sorts of cool stuff, okay? Do we have problems and trouble? Business is trouble, okay? Oh, the government wants to know what's going on here. Oh, I have to report to my manager. Oh my goodness, who do I owe money to? Who owes me money? That's my trouble, okay? So then what we do is we slowly kind of start making decisions, and it slowly kind of starts helping those pieces of the puzzle come into play. And so what we actually do is we actually propose almost on a virtual world building level, where you're actually kind of like getting into you're building a world, you literally are, and it's the story. And actually writers and movie makers, they actually call it world building, okay? The Hobbit you have orcs and this and that and all these crazy, you know, Saruman's trying to take over the world and all this kind of stuff. And like, he's the trouble. And then all of a sudden you have the Rangers and the Hobbits, and they get together with the elves, and they have to fight this battle. And like, basically, it's called world building. You have to take somebody into this almost virtual fantasy type level, but you have characters and they have relationships and what happens, and they got to defeat the trouble. And like, basically, what we do inside of Adilas is, instead of saying like, you know, Legolas or something like this, we basically say deposit number 77. It's not nowhere near as romantic or anything like that, but basically deposit number 77 has relationships with certain invoices, then it affects different banks, et cetera, kind of like that.
But instead of being with the other systems where it says, this is my world, come into it, Atlas is like, what is your world, and how can we make your world?
We call it world building, okay?
Yes, you, instead of, because I know the other systems, like, okay, you need to learn this, and this is how we function, and this is what you can do. And with this is what I noticed is that we go, okay, this is your problems, this is your world, let's make this system work to make your world the most comfortable world for you. And if you want to make another little world, okay, we can do that. If you want to come over here and do this, okay, we can add that on. But let's make you comfortable. Instead of trying to learn something that I've already made, and here it is, and this is what you need to do, and if you have a problem, well, okay. Instead of, that's what I like about this, is that it creates the world for you. That's why you have all those permissions and all the different things that people can do, and how you're already adding, and I like that.
Where we were going, I guarantee you there are other people who are going to be following along similar paths. And so we're trying to pioneer it. We're going to try to publish it. We're going to try to let people know. And Joe, I know you want to get this more and more out there. Part of our goal is to kind of get it out there. So even if you had another company that starts doing this, they're going to have to advertise, and they're going to have to compete against tradition. Any advertisement they do will actually further our work, because, hey, I've heard about that. You guys already do that? That's great. You know, like, it's awesome. So literally, that's where we're trying to kind of head.